Hello, I'm Essay, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin.
The Guide for the Perplexed by Moses Maimonides stands as a monumental intellectual edifice constructed at the confluence of Rabbinic Judaism, Islamic scholasticism, and Greco-Arabic philosophy, composed in the late 12th century. For his student Joseph ibn Shammon, this work addresses a specific and sophisticated audience, the individual educated in the sciences and philosophy of the age who consequently experiences a profound intellectual and spiritual dissonance when confronting the literal language of sacred scripture. The guide's ambitious objective is to demonstrate the harmony between the truths of reason, as epitomized by Aristotelian thought, and the truths of revelation embodied in the Torah. This essay will undertake a direct and systematic evaluation of the internal claims, logical frameworks, and argumentative mechanisms Maimonides employs throughout the three parts of his work, assessing the coherence and implications of the solutions he offers to the truly perplexed. Its purpose is an analytical deep dive into the text itself, examining the precise architecture of Maimonides' arguments as he builds his case for a rational and philosophically grounded faith. Section 1. The deconstruction of corporeality and anthropomorphic language. The first part of the Guide for the Perplexed initiates the entire philosophical project. I'm methodically dismantling the possibility of divine corporeality. Maimonides' central claim in this section is the absolute, unequivocal incorporeality of God. He confronts the pervasive anthropomorphic and anthropopathic descriptions of the deity within the Hebrew Bible, terms such as God's hand, face, voice, anger, or regret. His primary analytical tool is a sophisticated theory of linguistic homonymy. Maimonides posits that such words possess a primary, physical meaning when applied to created beings, and a second, wholly distinct and analogical meaning when predicated of the divine. The term hand, for instance, denotes the physical limb that is an instrument of human power when applied to God. It signifies the abstract concept of divine power or efficacy itself. The evaluation of this claim hinges on the persuasiveness of his linguistic and philosophical argument. Maimonides dedicates numerous chapters to a close reading of specific biblical terms, demonstrating that each one can be reinterpreted to signify an abstract perfection. His analysis of the word tzelem, or image, in the phrase "let us make man in our image," is a masterful example. He argues that tzelem refers exclusively to the essential form of a thing, which in the case of humanity is the rational soul or intellect. Therefore, the biblical statement proclaims that humanity shares with the divine the faculty of intellection, a far cry from any physical resemblance. The internal coherence of this section depends on accepting his premise that Scripture was deliberately written in the language of men to be accessible to the masses, while containing esoteric, philosophical truth for the intellectual elite. This creates a functional hierarchy of interpretation, where the philosopher's reading supersedes the common person's literal understanding. The critique arising from this method is that it appears profoundly elitist, suggesting that the true meaning of revelation is available only to a select few. Maimonides' framework, however, presents this as a pedagogical necessity, a concession to the varying intellectual capacities of the human community. The ultimate consequence of this decorporealizing project is the foundation for his negative theology, because any positive attribute applied to God would imply a composition or likeness to created things. Maimonides concludes that one can only know what God is by understanding what he is without. We can state that God exists, but any further positive description, such as wise or powerful in a human sense, introduces error. True knowledge is achieved by stripping away attributions, approaching the divine essence through a process of intellectual negation. Section 2. Establishing a metaphysical framework through Aristotelian physics. In the second part of the guide, Maimonides transitions from linguistic analysis to constructive metaphysics. His primary aim is to provide a rational, philosophical demonstration of the existence, unity, and incorporeality of God, truths he had previously asked his reader to accept based on his reinterpretation of Scripture. He accomplishes this by adopting and presenting a series of 26 propositions drawn directly from Aristotle's Physics and Metaphysics. These propositions establish a cosmological model of a universe composed of nested celestial spheres, moved by associated intellects, all tracing their motion back to a single, ultimate source, the prime mover. The argument structure is purely deductive. He begins with empirically observable phenomena, such as motion and the generation and corruption of things in the sublunar world, and reasons his way to the necessary existence of an unmoved mover that is eternal, indivisible, and devoid of all potentiality. This prime mover is, for Maimonides, the god of the philosophers. A critical evaluation of this section focuses on a moment of profound intellectual tension concerning the question of the world's eternity. Having masterfully presented the Aristotelian proofs for an eternal universe, which seem to flow inexorably from his own 26 propositions, Maimonides then confronts the core biblical doctrine of creatio ex nihilo, or creation from nothing. Here, he makes a crucial epistemological pivot. He argues that while philosophy can irrefutably demonstrate God's existence, it lacks the capacity to definitively prove either the eternity of the universe or its creation in time. The arguments for both positions, he contends, are subject to unresolved doubts. Faced with this philosophical impasse, Maimonides declares his allegiance to the scriptural account of creation, accepting it on the authority of prophetic revelation. This move has been interpreted in various ways. It can be seen as a failure of philosophical nerve, a retreat into dogma after a long display of rationalism. Alternatively, it represents a sophisticated statement about the limits of human reason. Maimonides' specific claim is that the laws of nature, which are the basis of philosophical inquiry, only apply to the universe as it currently exists. One cannot use these laws to retroactively understand the supernatural moment of creation itself, an event that by definition stands outside the natural order. He thereby carves out a protected space for revelation in matters that reason cannot adjudicate. His own evaluation of the kalam, cosmological arguments, which seek to prove creation philosophically, finds them lacking in true demonstrative force, a piece of intellectual honesty that adds weight to his claim of a genuine philosophical stalemate. The result is a hybrid cosmology, Aristotelian in its function or Hebraic in its origins. Section 3 synthesizing prophecy, providence, and the telos of human perfection. The third and final part of the guide addresses the practical and existential consequences of the philosophical system Maimonides has constructed. Here, he seeks to provide rational explanations for core tenets of Jewish faith, including prophecy, divine providence, the problem of evil, and the purpose of the commandments. His central claim regarding prophecy is that it is a natural, albeit rare, phenomenon. It is the result of an emanation flowing from God through the active intellect or cosmic intelligence in the Aristotelian schemito, the perfected rational and imaginative faculties of an individual. The prophet is a person who has achieved the highest possible level of intellectual and moral development, making them a suitable receptacle for this divine influx. This model effectively naturalizes prophecy, transforming it from an arbitrary miracle into the pinnacle of human achievement. The evaluation of this claim reveals its radical nature. It suggests that prophecy is, in principle, accessible to any human being who can perfect their intellect. Turning Moses and the other prophets into exemplars of philosophical and moral excellence, Maimonides' treatment of providence and the Odyssey is similarly stark and intellectually rigorous. He posits that divine providence operates on a sliding scale. It applies universally to the preservation of natural species, but extends to individual human beings only in direct proportion to the degree their intellect is actualized and connected to the divine flow of the active intellect. For the philosopher whose mind is constantly engaged in the contemplation of God, providence is a continuous, protective reality. For the majority of humanity, whose minds are occupied with material concerns, Their lives are largely governed by the laws of nature and chance. This is a chillingly unsentimental solution to the problem of why righteous people suffer. Maimonides uses the Book of Job as a philosophical drama to explore this very question, concluding that Job's ultimate solace comes from achieving a true philosophical understanding of God's nature and the workings of the cosmos, which silences his complaints. The internal logic is consistent, but its implications are severe, offering little comfort to the non-philosophical believer who suffers unjustly. Finally, Maimonides provides a rational teleology for the biblical commandments, the Tameh HaMitzvot. He argues that they are divine prescriptions designed for a dual purpose: the well-being of the body, through the creation of a stable and just society, and the well-being of the soul, by inculcating true beliefs and guiding the individual away from idolatry toward philosophical truth. He meticulously classifies the commandments, showing how each one contributes to social order or intellectual perfection, the ultimate goal of human life, and the highest form of worship in his system is the silent, intellectual contemplation of God. This ultimate claim subordinates all ritual, prayer, and communal action to the private, internal activity of the perfected mind, a conclusion that represents the complete synthesis of the philosopher-prophet ideal he has been constructing throughout the entire work. In conclusion, Maimonides' Guide for Perplexed offers a profoundly coherent and systematic intellectual architecture designed to harmonize two powerful, seemingly opposed traditions. The work's internal integrity rests upon a set of core mechanisms: the allegorical reinterpretation of Scripture, the strategic deployment of Aristotelian metaphysics, and a hierarchical epistemology that assigns distinct roles to reason and revelation. A direct evaluation of its claims reveals a mind committed to rational inquiry to the furthest extent possible, willing to radically reshape traditional concepts like prophecy and providence to fit within a philosophical framework. The brilliance of the guide resides less in any single argument and more in its comprehensive method. Maimonides provides his perplexed reader with an entire toolkit for intellectual engagement with their faith, teaching them how to read Scripture philosophically and how to see the universe as a testament to a rational, incorporeal creator, while the social and spiritual implications of his intellectual aristocracy remain a point of serious debate. The success of his project in creating a durable and compelling synthesis ensured its enduring influence on Jewish and Western thought. He guides his reader not to a simple set of answers, but to a new way of thinking, a method for living a life of the mind that is simultaneously a life of faith.
We really appreciate you tuning into this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.